Hey everybody, welcome to QuickBooks for real estate investors, how to manage your portfolio with QuickBooks. And today this is our 10th part, I believe, in the video series. So today we're going to go over adding a contribution, and I'm going to go through the steps of what happens when you have a member or when you have multiple members that contribute money to your LLC. That can be in the form of a fund if you're raising money, or it can be in the form of your business partners, and you decide to get together and, hey, we want to buy this house. We opened up this bank account. Okay, we're going to put our money, we're going to give our money to the business, what that looks like. Or if you're already established and for some reason you need to provide more cash to the business, whether it's to buy another property or to help with cash flow or whatever. But this is going to detail the steps of how that looks on the business's side in QuickBooks. So what we're going to do today is add some people into QuickBooks, and we're going to make a journal entry that details this transaction. So what I'm going to do first is I always start with a chart of accounts. That's just my habit, and I'm going to see what accounts I'm going to be working with. So I know I'm going to be working with my checking account because I'm going to make a deposit to the business. So this money is coming from outside the business and it needs to go into the business. And then once it's in the business account, we're going to spend it in the business's name. And I know that my members here, Billy Bob, Garth, and Katie, are going to make contributions. So I know I'm going to be working with their equity accounts because they're putting money into the business. If you remember, this equity account here tracks money that they put into the business, and it also tracks the value of their investment, or the value of what they own in the company. So I'm going to be working with those two accounts. And there's really two ways to do this. One is that we can come up here to banking, and we can make a deposit, because we're going to be making a deposit in our checking account, and I think that's the best way to do this. Or we could do a journal entry, which is under company, and make general entries. This option here is a little bit more for the person who knows accounting, especially if you know debits and credits, where this make deposits is a little bit more for the person who may not be that up to speed on all the accounting principles. So I'm going to go with make deposits, and I think that I'll do another video on how to do it the journal entry way. But for now, make deposits. And just a quick note, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but before I do this, you've got to know that in accounting there's a concept called double entry, which means that anytime you make a change to one account, it could be checking, it could be equity, it could be fixed assets, whatever, you've got to make a change to another account. It doesn't happen by itself. So there's always got to be a balance of what we've got going on in the books. And there's a equation that you probably learned in college or high school. You might have learned it in class saying, why am I here? I'll never use this. But it's assets equals liabilities plus equity on the balance sheet side. So we've always got to have a balance between what we have and what we own, which is your assets, and what we owe to other people, which is our liabilities, and what part of the business we can claim, which is our equity. We're not going to get into that detail now, but just remember that you've always got to have two accounts in any transaction. You can have more than two, but the minimum is two. And you don't really see it that way when we go up here to make deposits. So I went to banking and make deposits. And this is going to open up a deposit window here, and this is where we're going to enter some data and tell QuickBooks what to do. You notice our top menu hasn't changed. We just had this window. And the first thing that it highlights for us is deposit to. And it says, hey, where would you like to put this money? and it first selects our checking account, which is what we want. Most people don't deposit to their savings account, although you could. If you've got multiple checking accounts, make sure that this is correct. When you actually go to make the deposit at the bank and you come back and you sit down at your computer and you say, okay, I've got to make this entry, you want to make sure that it's the correct bank account. The date is also important. That is today's date, or the date which you made the deposit, not necessarily the date which the bank clears the transaction. So I'm just going to use today, and memo is great. We want to keep that memo alone. We don't need to put anything else there. And okay, so I'm just using tab to move through these fields. The first field or column here is received from, and this says, okay, where or who or from what company did you get this money from? And right now, if I click on this drop down box, oh wow, I set this up from another video I did not record. So we've got some names in here. I was going to use Marshall Mathers as another name, but we can see that I did set up Billy Bob Thornton before, so I'll just go with him. So Billy Bob Thornton, actually I'll delete him just to scratch that. We'll start over. So let's say that I'm like you, I don't have any other names, and I'm gonna say, well, this is received from Katy Perry. She's a member of my LLC. She's going to be giving me some money, so I just type in Katy's name, and I'm going to hit tab to move to the next column. But wait, QuickBooks says, hey, I don't know who Katy Perry is. You've got to tell me a little bit more about this person so I can help you, so I know what's going on. I like to do setup. Unless you're going real fast, Quick Add is skip some steps. So I'm going to do setup just so you know what that's like. You don't have to do it this way. Regardless of what you do, you will always have this window here that says select name type. And for our LLC members, they're going to be others. They're going to be an other name. They're not an employee. They're not a customer. They're not a vendor. Even if you are going to somehow pay, if you're going to have an LLC member on your payroll, or you're going to do it that way, they're still in this transaction going to be an other, because they are making this transaction as an owner and as part of this business. So we're gonna set them up as an other. We're gonna hit OK. Now this is where you could add more details. I'm not going to here, but if you have a multi-member LLC where you have limited partners, managing partners, general partners, what have you, you might want to enter in some contact information here. And the reason why it's important is because these fields will populate other forms in QuickBooks. So if you sent out a statement to this person, QuickBooks would use all of this information that's already here. So I'll just do 1, 2, 3. I'll do this as an example, just so you'll see that it will populate later on. But this stuff's important if you're going to be sending correspondence out of QuickBooks, such as letters, statements, any type of reporting you want to send to this person. It's important to have their information here, and most people skip this, but it's a good habit to get into. If Katy Perry is your business partner, you probably don't need to have your business partner's address and phone number in QuickBooks, because you know that. So, or if it's you, then you can ignore this as well. And if you're following along, you most likely are a member of the LLC. You will have to enter yourself in if you're a member of an LLC. And if you remember in part 8, I believe, it was we went over equity accounts. You will be on the equity account. So I'm going to click OK. And just to show you what I mean with that last statement there, Katy Perry is the name of a LLC member, and Katy Perry also has a equity account. So if this were your name would go here, and then your name would also go here. So you'd have an account for yourself, and you'd also be created as a entity or an item in QuickBooks. All right. I hope that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, leave a comment, and I'll I can see if I can go into a little bit more detail and clarify that. But for now, we're going to move on. So we're going to Katy Perry's made a contribution, and from account is a little bit confusing. I like to revise that and say to account. Where are you going to put this? Remember, we have always two accounts in any transaction. So our first account was up here. It's a little bit hidden, but it's here. It's U.S. Bank checking. Now we need to select our other account where we're gonna put this money. And for a contribution, we're going to put it into Katy Perry equity. Remember, I said earlier that in Part 8, equity is generally going to be positive. You can't have negative equity, but it's generally going to be positive. We do not want to put it into draws. That will always be negative or zero. So we're going to select Katy Perry equity because she's contributing money to the business. Memo, we might just say capital contribution. Leave it at that. I do like to include a memo on every transaction because it helps you cover your ass for future reference. If you forget what this is, you can always jog your memory with a descriptive but short, concise memo. If she wrote a check, you can type in the check number, payment method, check. If she gave cash, you can type in cash. If she made an electronic transaction, I would use e-check, and if for cash or e-check, you would leave this blank. So I'm going to say she wrote a check and the amount of $10,000. And now I'm just going to continue along and assume that the other members of my LLC have made contributions as well. If it were only Katie that has made a contribution, then I would leave it at that. But we also have two other members, and one of them is Garth Brooks. So like before, I'm just going to start typing, and QuickBooks is going to say, hey, I don't know who this is. I'm going to click Setup. I'm going to select Other, and then just for example's sake, I'm also going to include an address in here for just so you can see what's going on. Okay, so Garth lives in the Vatican. So got through that. This is going to be Garth Brooks equity. Be careful not to do draws because D comes before E in the alphabet. QuickBooks wants to go to draws by default, but make sure you arrow down and select equity. Again, I'm using tab to move through these fields. A good trick here is to use arrow up, Control C, arrow down, Control V instead of typing that in. Garth made an electronic contribution, so there is no check number, and he also contributed $10,000. Now, since I already have Billy Bob set up, I can just start typing, and Billy Bob is going to populate that field. Tab to move over. Again, I'm going to do Billy Bob, not draws, but equity. Arrow up, Control C, arrow down, Control V, and Billy Bob gave some cash, so there's no check number, and he also gave $10,000. So, by the looks of this, these partners are equal, or they all have a third of the business, and they've made equal contributions into our U.S. Bank checking account. We don't need to worry about cashback memo, cashback amount. Ignore that for now, and that's it. So we've received from the members of our LLC. We've put that amount into their respective equity accounts. We've written a memo. We've given the details of how they were paid, and we've definitely given the amount. So our deposit was $30,000. I'm going to hit Save and Close. I'm going to go to Control A to go back to my chart of accounts so you can see exactly what's happened. If you remember, probably not, but we started with $5,000 in our checking account. We've added 30, so now our balance in our checking account is $35,000. And our equity accounts now show that each of these members has made a contribution. So Katie, Garth, and Billy have made $10,000 each, and that's reflected in their equity accounts. If I go up here to Reports, Company and Financial, Balance Sheet Standard, and I hit All, you can see that on my balance sheet, each one of these people is represented, and their total share of the business, as in $10,000, is also represented. So it flows through very nicely, and this is why we spent the time in the earlier videos to set up Katy Perry equity, Garth Brooks equity, and Billy Bob Thornton equity, so that it would look nice and presentable on our balance sheet, which is ultimately what you want to get to. All of this work is all we're doing is working towards getting a nice, neat, clean balance sheet, income statement, and a statement of cash flows, so we know exactly what's happening in our business. So everything is working towards getting great financial statements. So I'm going to hit escape, and it says I've modified it. I'm going to say I do not. I'm going to say no. You can ignore that just for now. We'll go over that later. But the point is that we've made a deposit. We've done it by banking and make deposits. So that's it for this video. Comment, let me know how I'm doing. Ask a question. Maybe I can solve it for you. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.